Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into literally the ultimate academic pursuit, the doctoral degree. Whether you're aiming to become a tenured university professor or maybe a high-level executive driving innovation in your industry, getting that doctorate in front of your name is a massive, totally life-changing undertaking. To put that into perspective, less than 2% of the global population actually holds a doctorate. But what does it really take to reach that summit? Especially now that digital learning has just completely transformed how we pursue higher education. Well, we're going to unpack exactly what this journey looks like, from day one all the way to graduation.
So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with PhDs versus professional doctorates, track the transition from coursework to original research, cover supervisors and funding, the grueling dissertation phase, surviving the Viva Voce, and finally, academia versus industry realities.
Okay, let's dive into this very first choice. Section 1. PhD versus professional doctorates. Before we split them into categories, we really need to understand what binds them together. A doctorate is a terminal degree. Now, I know that sounds a bit intense, but don't worry, it won't actually kill you, though the workload might honestly make you wonder sometimes. It simply means there's no higher formal academic qualification you can achieve in that specific field. But here is the absolute core requirement, the one thing that separates a doctorate from a master's degree. You absolutely must make an original contribution to human knowledge. You aren't just sitting there learning what others have already discovered, you are actually creating new knowledge yourself.
And this perfectly illustrates the two main paths you can take to make that contribution. The traditional PhD is geared toward the professional researcher, so it's heavily focused on abstract theory, or what academics like to call Mode 1 knowledge. It's all about expanding the fundamental theoretical foundations of a field. On the flip side, we have professional doctorates, like a Doctor of Business Administration or Doctor of Education. These are for the researching professional. They focus on Mode 2 knowledge, which is basically taking those existing theories and rigorously applying them to solve really complex, messy, real-world problems in your specific industry. Both are terminal degrees, they just have completely different targets.
Moving right along. Section 2. Coursework to original research.
This whole journey is basically an academic marathon. It usually takes anywhere from 3 to 8 years, and there are some very distinct pivot points along the way. In years 1 and 2, you're taking foundational coursework, really mastering the existing literature. But then, right around year 2 or 3, bam, you hit a massive pivot, qualifying exams and defending your research proposal. If you survive that and pass, you officially become a doctoral candidate. And from there, years 3 through 8 represent a dramatic shift. The classes just stop. You enter this highly independent, often pretty lonely phase of research, data collection, and dissertation writing. The training wheels come completely off.
Next up, Section 3. Supervisors and securing funding.
Now, when it comes to the financials, the models completely diverge depending on how you choose to study. Traditional, on-campus PhDs usually rely on university stipends. The school covers your tuition and gives you a modest living allowance, but in exchange, you're working as a teaching or research assistant, completely immersing yourself on campus full-time. Online and hybrid professional doctorates, they operate quite differently. Because these candidates are often mid-career executives, these programs rely heavily on self-funding or employer sponsorship. For instance, look at the Johns Hopkins Doctor of Engineering program. The student's actual workplace becomes their funded, authorized research site. You get to solve your company's high-level problems while keeping your day job and your salary. It's a pretty great setup. But listen, regardless of whether you're fully funded on a leafy campus or studying online from your living room couch, your supervisor is your academic lifeline. They are a senior academic whose job is to monitor your progress, really challenge your methodology, and ultimately prepare you for that final defense. Having a great relationship with your supervisor can totally make your doctorate. A poor one can absolutely break it.
Which brings us to the hardest part, Section 4, the grueling dissertation phase.
For PhD students, this phase means hunkering down and writing a massive traditional thesis. But for those doing professional doctorates, you might tackle what's known as a dissertation in practice, or a DIP. Instead of trying to invent some completely new academic theory out of thin air, you identify a complex problem of practice right inside your own organization, and you use advanced research methods to build and test an evidence-based solution.
I actually really love this quote from the director of the DBA program at Aston University because it just perfectly captures the spirit of the professional doctorate. It's so encouraging for practitioners who might feel a bit intimidated by the idea of creating new knowledge. By applying an existing theoretical framework to a totally new business problem, you are in fact generating original, doctoral-level knowledge. You don't have to be the next Einstein to make a real impact.
We have to be honest here, though. While the intellectual work is incredibly stimulating, the psychological toll is immense, especially for online students. Traditional students have the benefit of campus labs, seminars, and physical peer groups around them. Online researchers face what we call the isolation challenge. Without a physical campus to walk onto every morning, the burden of momentum falls 100% on your own self-discipline. Balancing high-level research with a full-time job and a family, that requires truly exceptional time management. If you're looking at an online path, knowing how to be your own cheerleader is literally going to be your most vital skill.
All right, it's time for the final boss battle of the doctoral journey. Section 5. Surviving the Viva Voce. So, you might have heard the term thesis defense, but in many parts of the world, like the UK and Europe, it's known as the Viva Voce. So what exactly is it?
Well, the term translates to with living voice, and it is an intense intellectual gauntlet. After you finally submit your massive written document, you have to verbally defend it before a panel of academic experts. And get this, that includes an external examiner who has never even met you and whose sole job is to rigorously critique your work. They are going to interrogate your methodology, your findings, your conclusions, the whole shebang. And let's be crystal clear about something. Whether you studied full-time on campus at Oxford or part-time online while working in Dubai, you face the exact same standard of examination. There are zero shortcuts here. Surviving this step is what actually earns you the title of doctor.
Finally, let's look at what happens after graduation. Section 6. Academia versus industry realities. Let's look at the hard data regarding how employers actually view doctorates earned online. In sectors like business, tech, and education, acceptance is incredibly high. Corporations care about practical ROI, and tech companies are already naturally aligned with remote collaboration anyway. However, in clinical and laboratory sciences, acceptance remains very low. And that makes sense, right? If a field deeply relies on physical bench science, direct clinical supervision, and expensive hardware, remote learning simply cannot replace that hands-on, experiential validation.
Geographically, acceptance also varies quite a bit. In Australia, the UK, and the European Union, legal frameworks completely harmonize degree levels. The Australian qualifications framework, for instance, ensures a level 10 doctorate is mathematically equal whether you sat in a Sydney lecture hall or your home office. Europe's Bologna process operates the exact same way, ensuring absolute parity. However, over in North America, a bit of a cultural divide still remains. While tech and corporate industries happily accept accredited online doctorates, the gatekeepers for elite tenure-track university professor jobs still strongly prefer candidates who underwent traditional on-campus PhD socialization.
But what you should really take away from all of this is that the landscape has irreversibly changed. The rise of online and professional doctorates isn't about killing off the traditional on-campus PhD. Not at all. It's about democratizing access. It is allowing mid-career professionals, parents, and people in developing regions to engage in top-tier global scholarly networks without uprooting their entire lives.
Earning a doctorate is one of the most grueling, demanding, yet intellectually rewarding things a human being can ever do. It requires years of sacrifice, deep curiosity, and just relentless grit. But the pathways to get there, they're more diverse and accessible today than ever before. So the only question left to ask yourself is this: are you ready to push the boundaries of human knowledge? Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer, and keep learning.